So I have 7:30 on the clock, so I think we should just get started. So thanks everybody for joining us. This is Central New York School Librarian's second Google Hangout. We have a really great topic tonight, which is advocacy. And I doubt that any of us entered this field like super excited at the prospect of having to advocate for our careers, but you know, we were all thinking about the things we love, like teaching skills and sharing literature and expanding horizons for our students. But the fact is that our programs are often misunderstood, and unless we are loud and proud, it's very difficult to get what we need to reach our potential. So advocacy leverages all of our passion and talent and knowledge and skills to further our cause, which is saving the world by giving all students access to certified, effective, and empowered school librarians. So we've got an awesome panel of superheroes of library advocacy on with us tonight, and they're here to answer your questions and share their experiences. So I'd like to start just by kind of going right down the line and having each of them introduce themselves and share a little bit of their background with library advocacy efforts. So why don't we start with Heather?
Okay, technology in the background. I am Heather Turner, and I am the school librarian at Solvay Middle School. I teach grades 4 through 8, and I love the integration of technology and literature, and that's me.
All right, Dory. Oh, we've got a, there we go.
I had to unmute because I muted myself. So I'm Doreen Bergman. I am the OCM BOCE School Library System Coordinator. Previous to that, I worked with my colleagues that are joining us today on this chat at Liverpool. I was also a classroom teacher in Fulton, New York. So I'm very happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Penny?
I am one of 3 that is on here from the Liverpool team today, and I'm the newest one of them, so I will probably be deferring to them mostly because I am learning a lot from them about how advocacy works. I've been at Liverpool for about 5 years now, and I'm with Heather. I really enjoy the technology, but I also really enjoy the literature too.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Sarah?
I have to unmute myself. I'm Sarah Kelly Johns, and I am, let's see, where did I start with advocacy? I started with advocacy years ago when I was one of 2 librarians in a middle high school library, and all of a sudden, on a whim, it seemed, the principal eliminated the second position. The other person left and got a good job as a school library system director years ago, one of the very first, and I had to stay and deal with the fact that I had to face the fact that not everybody knew why I was there. Even though they liked me, they didn't really know why I was there and what it is that I did with their programs. Say hi, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
And so that started me on advocacy, and at this point I'm retired from a school library building. I present and consult on, I consult on school library programs, I consult on advocacy and write about advocacy, and I have an active wiki, frugal school librarian .wikispaces.com, where I throw up every resource that I can about advocacy, and sometimes find I put them up 3 times. But I'm passionate about advocacy. I'm at every legislative advocacy day, and you get kind of tired of doing it, but you have to do it. Have to do it.
All right, thank you. Kay and Sue?
I'm in Liverpool 16 years. Before that, I was at ESM, Chittenango, Ithaca, in Boston. So I've been around a little bit. I started my career as a teacher like Doreen, and then I got my library degree. I think advocacy is just a part of what I've been doing since I was a teacher. I think it was just ingrained in me that you need to constantly be promoting your program, promoting whatever it is you do. I think I grew up with teachers, and I grew up during a strike, and I know what it is to have the community look at you differently as a teacher, and then cut those programs and the political winds that blow one way, and then the next day they blow a different way. So I think I've been doing advocacy all my life, and I think I do it at a very grassroots level. I tend to think just in my building or just in our district, and I shouldn't. And so I'm here to learn from some of our other colleagues who are doing it above and beyond.
I agree, Kay. I'm also from Liverpool, been there 20 years. Prior to that, music teacher, and then a program manager for 11 years. So I have a little background in the performance measurement side of the need for advocacy. And we had to actually take this head on about 6 years ago. Our superintendent, who was hired to cut the budget and do some massive cuts, decided it would be a great idea to get rid of all of our elementary librarians. So that really kicked it home for us, not that we weren't doing it, but that we had to do it on a broader and a more vocal nature and a constant type thing. So we try to keep at it every single day with the little pieces that we can. So that's why we're here.
All right, thank you. And I'm Katie St. Laurent. I'm the librarian at Solvay High School and co-president with Heather Turner of Central New York School Librarians. I think my awareness of advocacy started right from the very beginning of library school. I was lucky enough to take a class with Dave Lankus, and that was right around the time that e-readers were becoming a big thing, and people were coming up and saying, our library's dead, our e-reader's going to put us out of business. It's 6 years later, libraries are not dead, but it makes you realize how important public opinion really is in whether or not we get to do our jobs. So I think we're at a point where we have this great opportunity. Things are changing. We can redefine ourselves in the public eye, and we can make sure that people understand what libraries and librarians are all about. And just my own experience in the working world, I've been in 2 schools. The first had a paraprofessional for 20 years. And the teachers there did not know what to do with me. They didn't know how to use me. They didn't know what I could do for them. And then coming into my current building, where they had a more, obviously they had the example of Heather at the middle school. They had a more modern librarian for a few years before me. And walking into that situation was like heaven, because people at least had an idea of what they should expect from a good librarian. So, thank you all for your introductions, and I think we'll just jump right into the questions submitted by the attendees. So I guess first of all, even if you have positions secured, how do you demonstrate the need for support staff or funding or other types of support from your administrators or communities? One person that submitted a question said, she needs advice on how to survive solo. She has no assistant. She needs to keep current with her collection and circulation tasks, plus teaching lessons, and then all this other great stuff that we want to be doing, like makerspaces and reading supports. So what advice would our panelists have on, demonstrating those needs?
I do have one piece of advice, and that is, having kind of survived through that, is that you actually need to demonstrate with data that your program can't be the same solo as it was with support staff, or in my case, another librarian. And that often means that you have to prioritize what you do. It can't look the same. It can't act the same. You have to decide: is collaboration with teachers your first? Is reading guidance your second? Where it's going to be? But you also keep track of all the things that you don't do. and one of the person that came right to my mind about this was my friend Rebecca Sofferman Burkett, who had a spreadsheet with a scope and sequence of all of the skills that her students reached over the years. And when she was cut back to having to cover 2 schools instead of 1, she could show the principals of those 2 schools what their students weren't getting. Here, I'm getting this. I'm doing this. This is what they're getting, but they're not getting this. And so after that presentation to the middle school principal, the principal said, I don't want the students coming into middle school not having all of the things on that list. And so it involves record keeping, data, and that's, it's back from the days when reference librarians used to keep track of how many reference requests up to now spreadsheets. And you have to sit back, you have to reflect, sit back, and go, how can I show people what the difference is? And that can help.
And I'm going to jump in on that with Sarah too, because I think she's right on target with that. It's about showing what's not happening for kids, not necessarily what you are doing. So many of our school librarians throughout the OCM BOCES region, because of the lack of support in the library, have to actually close down the library to collaborate, to work with teachers, to take part in department meetings, to go to grade level meetings. So every time that library has to be closed or is dark, and my friends from Liverpool can certainly jump in on this because of the splits that they experience, it is a missed opportunity for a child to come in and get a book, to use technology, to get support on a research project. So it's really being very deliberate in making sure that you're collecting that data. One thing traditionally that I'd say that we're not really fantastic at is really tooting our own horns. But when the kids don't have access to you as a certified school librarian, and especially to a open library, that's detrimental across the entire learning, because it's not about how many books you check out, it's how you're impacting student learning each and every day.
You know, when we were first cut, one of the things that we did is we looked at output measures, and we took a look at the number of students that come through our door every day in each one of our libraries. And then we looked at the number of databases that are accessed on a daily basis. And we quantified all of those things in a single day, what happens in a single day. And we made it into a movie to show our Board of Education and our principals. And one of the things that we put in the movie was, as we were going through students walking through a door and working on a computer, we showed closed signs on libraries. So on any given day, X number of our libraries are closed. And so maybe it was subtle, and it was a little bit in your face. We didn't say our libraries were closed. We were showing the statistics, and I guess the implication was with closed libraries, you know, if they were opened, our statistics would be so much better. You know, now our libraries are not closed. Through the directive from the superintendent, although our libraries are not staffed, our library doors are open. I don't know whether that's a good thing or that's a bad thing. I mean, the librarian in me says children should have access, and if they're coming with an adult, the advocate in me says that's not a great message that we're sending, but it's not an easy answer there. So, do you want to add about that campaign that we did?
The quantifiable measures was a step back in the past, if you will. But at that particular point in time, that's what our board was looking at. That's what they cared about, were how many students we were reaching and what type of services we were delivering. So that was a little different. But we also had a softer side to the campaign where we were telling those personal stories. We gathered stories from parents and from teachers and from students. So there was also that side of it as well. I don't want you to think it was all numbers, but that was one of the focus points at that point. And as she said, our libraries are still understaffed. They are not open every day. There are still librarians sharing positions. So for the person who asked, how do I live solo? Prioritize. You cannot do everything. And you need to pick what is going to give you the biggest bang for your buck as far as advocacy goes and as far as your program goes. And keep your sanity. Make a plan for what you're going to do for those things that you're going to prioritize, but definitely make advocacy one of those goals.
Awesome, thank you. And so, like, kind of to go along with that, someone had a question, you know, knowing that a library is not just a room with books in it, but so many of the grants and the funding that we have readily available focuses solely on books. How can we kind of expand our scope, you know, finding ways to get things done when, you know, maybe you don't have funding to build a makerspace or buy new furniture? What would you suggest to this person?
Go ahead, Heather.
No, you go ahead. I'm not even a panelist.
Oh, I was just going to say that in the past I've done quite a bit with Donors Choose. It is a great way to, I've gotten rugs and book bags and things like that. And it is, you know, Donors Choose helps you be very public. I mean, I know some of you see all of my tweets on it and Facebook, and so it gets the message out there that you need those things, and then you do get the funding for it. And you can get some things like that. My next thing is the makerspace stuff, but I just recently got a rug that was over $500 just because I had rearranged the space and I had this big open gap. So that was just one thing that I wanted to suggest is Donors Choose. It is one way that you can get some money or get some supplies or things like that that you need in.
And I'll also add that really it's amazing what your staff has in their house that they're not using as far as maker spaces are concerned. I mean, if you need Legos, or I mean, a lot of staff have, you know, will have adult children, so I mean, there is access to some of those creative side of engaging the mind. And also, like, I'm the head of student council in my school, so I can do things through that because it's going to help the entire building and it gives access to the entire building. So the student council students decided they wanted board games for the school, and so now they have access to board games in the school. Anyone can check them out and take them to their room, and they're for the entire school. So I feel like there are avenues, and especially for elementary, middle school and high school, not as much, but PTOs have money. They don't want to let you know that they have money, but they have money.
I think that PTO
Go ahead, Doreen.
is really important. I go to every single PTO meeting. I go to every single PTO event. They are strong supporters of my library, and I'm very grateful. I run a Barnes & Noble book fair to give back to the PTO. When they have their book fair in the building, I support it in a number of different ways. I think that the fact that you are, as a librarian, a presence in the PTO, your presence on your student excellence team, your leadership team, I think that's where the strongest advocacy occurs. And I said I do it at a very grassroots level, and that's at my building level. And I think that's where you garner your support. You know, the PTO has been incredibly generous with me, and I'm very grateful to them. And I will continue to support them with all that I do. So I think that PTO component is one that you hit the nail on the head, Heather, that it's an important one. Maybe more at the elementary than at the high school.
Yeah, that's at the high school. What works for us is get the kids involved. like you said, go to your student council, go to the groups, go to whoever you need to. Tell them what they're missing out on by not having XYZ, and the kids will find a way to make it happen.
And I'm just going to jump in. Those are excellent suggestions. And some other things that tend to go overlooked is foundations, business organizations in your area. A lot of times, some of your bigger industries and business have your $1 for jeans on Friday things. They'll donate money. A lot of times, even your credit unions and your banks have different foundations. Don't be afraid to ask. Reach out to those people and ask. A lot of people are even doing the pancake breakfasts at Applebee's and things like that. Get your kids together if you have a nice staff, if you have a student council, if you have an honor society. You'd be surprised what kids are willing to do when you ask. But I think a lot of times those foundations and those businesses are really overlooked treasures in communities.
Hey, that's great advice.
That is excellent advice, and I think one of the important pieces, because that involves marketing, is the fact that one, you have a plan that that matches your school's goals, and two, you tie it to teaching information literacy and getting school students ready for college and careers. And how important that is, and if you can tie those two together, you've got a grant application for someplace. Because you kind of have to show how it's unique to the library's role and how much it's needed in this school. And that, I know this is further on down, but as of 2017-18, the ESSA supports technology and includes school libraries. School libraries are eligible for that. So I really think that starting at least over the summer, but especially in September, build this whole year making connections in your school, making connections in your community to how any grants written can go into the school library. And there's also the innovative approaches to literacy that is now being funded by ESSA. That was a big fight for ALA to get that. That didn't have to be go through Congress every year, and that is for literacy and technological literacy. Information literacy is literacy. So that's other more funding streams, but tie it to what school libraries do.
All right, fantastic. And that is actually a really great lead-in to the next question. How to engage your stakeholders, whether it's your students, your teachers, parents in the community, the PTO. How do you get your message out there and get them invested in it? And specifically, one person asked how to reach a community that's not digitally connected, and I think it says doesn't have a newspaper. So what would be some suggestions for making those connections?
Okay, so I have some suggestions. A couple of things that are that you should be doing, and I think Kay's doing a good job with this, is really being involved with your parent organizations. But I also think a really strong connection that we could be doing much better with at both the school level, the district level, and even at the BOCES level, is working closely with all of the different types of organizations within the community. So when there's a literacy night, you invite the different organizations in. So a lot of times, whether it's the public library, that's a great avenue for getting the community involved. Working with some of the youth development organizations in the community, that's another great avenue. And I think really, I don't think we partner enough across our buildings. So a lot of times, whether it's a Readers from Birth program, but getting your high school students or your middle school students involved, because that's a great way for them to bring their families into the organization. Hold a grandparents literacy night. Your grandparents are a wonderful avenue, and a lot of the times they're the ones making a lot of the funding decisions now in families. So I think reaching out across generations and doing events that bring those generations together is a real powerful way to get your community involved.
I can speak highly for getting the public library involved. We recently had several programs where the teen librarian came in and actually did some both instructional things, and we had a big card sign up like everybody does. But we also teamed that with some definite programs, and that was very, very successful. And it did gather kids who normally wouldn't have that contact. Because they aren't digitally connected. They got the information in school, then they showed up at the public library, and it was very successful.
My suggestion was going to be work through your students, and that with events like Sue Kowalski's Bookapalooza. I said it right. With programs that where students a poetry slam the night or the night or previous to the chorus and the band concerts, so that when people are coming to the school, you have something to offer. Parent night. Do something besides wait for people to wander into the library, but just tie into an arts night, so that or after school programs, classes for the community, but it's reaching out, working outward. That you have to when you're in that situation, or really any school, if you think about pushing outward, pretty soon people are coming in.
During an open house that we just had, I set out robots, and so that it would give parents the opportunity to kind of interact and have their own kids show them how to use it. We have a Minecraft club, Minecraft EDU, for our 4th and 5th grade students, and I didn't do the presentation. A student did the presentation. So these parents were much more engaged and willing to come and see it because their own kids were showing them how to do it. And they're like, oh, I see you play this Minecraft thing all the time. Tell me about this. And so we got some really great conversation with parents and for what is in the library. And I had conversations with parents on, oh, this is what a library is? Oh, this is kind of different than when I was in school. I said, yeah, a lot has changed. And so we were able to have some really cool conversations. So that's my 2 cents.
My 2 cents is a couple of things that I did that reached out to the community. I'm fortunate enough that one of my students, her father is a DJ on a local radio station that's a pretty popular one. So when we did World Read Aloud Day, he came in, he read to the kids, he talked to them about careers and things like that, and he kind of did some promotion for me through his radio station, talking about going into his daughter's school library and reading and interacting. So reaching out through your parents in that way can be really helpful too. And then at our open house, I had collaborated with our art teacher. So a lot of our art displays had research right alongside with the citations and everything else, so that as parents were looking at the kids' artwork, they also saw what the kids did in library and did in research, and all of the citations and all of that. So I think with the right collaboration you can get yourself out there more, and also reaching out through your parents and having them communicate for you in different ways is also helpful.
I wanted to say I have a committee called ROAR. ROAR stands for Really Outrageous Adventures in Reading. And the ROAR committee is comprised of teachers and parents and myself. And ROAR does a number of things. It sponsors the author visit. We do the Turn Off the TV Week, where we reach out to parents. We do the Darien Lake Read to Ride program. We do the Summer Reading Initiative, where we have this year it's popcorn theme, last year it was popsicle theme. But it kind of pulls in my stakeholders. And recently I kind of said, why don't I bring students into that as well? And so my 5th and 6th grade students are sponsoring a Rubik's Cube competition in the library. They planned it. I haven't used students as much as I probably should, so they're doing that, and we're having some fun with that. But the ROAR, although it sounds like it's fun events, it really is my advocacy program, because it really is bringing in the teachers, the parents, and everybody, and being a part of that. So I guess disguising advocacy sometimes is fun. Maybe works.
I think that's a really good point. And when you talked earlier about the fact that in your video you didn't pound people over the head, you let them make the connection between the students' education and what needed to happen and what wasn't happening. You didn't. You have to have stories and you have to have data. But the thing about advocacy is it has to be done consciously and deliberately, and you have to take advantage of every opportunity that you can. And a continuing program like ROAR is something that pretty soon everybody will look forward to, and so they know what's going on. Because one of the sayings that I say over and over again when I present is that you can have a good program, but it's not great if nobody knows about it. And that takes deliberate, conscious, and continual action. It's something that people would miss if it wasn't there, is rather than someone being stridently walking around with a sign of unimportant, is what will bring people to your library and will bring people to your board meeting if there's a problem with your budgets or positions. So it's like School Library Month. It's now. It's April. I used to do a School Library Month read-along, a School Library Media Day back when it was Media Day. School Library Media Day in New York is April 30th. I was always at a SLIMS conference then, now SSL. So School Library Media Day was any day that fit into the school schedule, and it was a special event. So somewhere around April or May. But it was an annual event, and people wanted it. But I didn't have a parent who was a DJ, unfortunately. But that's great, Penny.
But I think that's a really good point, that every person who walks through your library for any event is a possible advocate for you. So when you're doing these events, putting your students forward. So when you're doing literacy events, do literacy events for parents also. Let your kids show them the digital ebooks. Let them show them how to use the databases. You all have access to things like Tumble Books and Brain Pop and things like that, that if parents know about them and know how to use them also, that's a great advocacy tool for using not only the resources but the impact on student learning in those ways. So don't forget that we're not just educating the students that we see during the day, but we have an opportunity to really share and educate our entire school community, and that includes the parents, because they're all walking around with smartphones and so on. Imagine if they're handing it to the child at the restaurant, right? that they're watching a Brain Pop video instead of playing Angry Birds or something. So there's parents letting them know what you have to offer is really, really important, and that sometimes running those events for parents as well as children.
Great, thank you for those great responses. We also had quite a few questions about the community inside the school. The next few kind of deal with teachers and administrators specifically. So let's start with teachers. How do you draw them in when they don't think they need help, or they won't change, or they don't have time to collaborate, or they just don't know how to work with a librarian?
I'll jump in again. One of the things that I am a turnkey trainer in my building, and so it's my job to teach them a lot of the technology that's coming down the pike. And one of the big things recently was we became a Google school, and so I use that kind of as an opportunity. I set up office hours during their planning periods where I send out an email on Sunday night and saying, okay, I'm going to be coming to see first grade at this time on Monday and second grade at this time on Tuesday. And so it gives them, by going to them, I say, okay, well, what do you need with technology? And sometimes sometimes they can't. I have to do grading right now, and now is not a good time, but it kind of opens that door. So not only are we talking about the technology, and I'm showing them Google Drive and Google Classroom and things like that, but it also gives me a little bit of an in to find out what they're doing in class and how I can support that and how I can collaborate with them to make it, it doesn't always work, but it definitely helps open that door. So for me, that's been a real positive thing, and they really, I think, see that the librarian is also not just about the resources, but about the technology and about enhancing what they're doing by collaborating with me.
I'm going to try not to go into the entire course on instructional collaboration that I taught for Mansfield. But one of the most important things that I think I taught to the students I had in my 8 years of teaching is that this is incremental. For me, it started with coffee for 25 cents a cup in my library office. It could be five big carafes a day, and then showing them, and needless to say, it came with advice, and it was only 3 feet from my desk, so that showed it. The other very successful information literacy tool that really got my faculty ready to collaborate with me was Noodle Tools. And especially which it could be EasyBib, it could be whatever citation generator, but a lot of them were very unsure about the fact that, gee, in the Common Core, their students were required to research and to tell where it came from, and I made it easy for that by giving every kid a Noodle Tool account. So, and when it got to the point that teachers and students could collaborate in a Noodle Tools bib, so that teachers could see the benchmarks of where the students were as they did their research. Cut way down on plagiarism, but and the quality of the resources that they were using, because teachers could comment. But it also, I made it easy for them. It's leveraging technology. It's leveraging what the teachers need to be successful. One elementary school librarian told me about a teacher starting to cry when she found out that the librarian could teach citations, because she knew she needed to add that. And the teacher didn't feel like she could fit it in. So what is it that what is it that you can give them that gives them time to collaborate, that makes it easy to collaborate? So if they don't have time, well, what can you do to help them have more time? Because what can you do to take it up a notch? But one of the things I used to do is with Wiki Pathfinders for projects. They went up on the library page so all the parents and teachers, even in other classes, saw them. But I also showed the log of the project planning that I did with the teachers to the administrator when the administrator was coming in to do observations, because a lot of them landed up in the library. So it was the collaboration tool was also an advocacy tool, and a lot of teachers came back.
That's one thing that we also did when I collaborate with the teachers and we work on projects. Doreen will remember this, of course. We also provide assessment along some of the process steps. So the teacher's responsible for some things, we're responsible for other things. The teacher gets to double dip, if you will, on that. But we provide them with a measurement of what their kids are doing. Then we tailor the instruction maybe a little bit for the next day based on what we saw. And the teacher could see the benefit of that. And then it was easier to move on to the next step. And then they were prepped this year. When can we come in? Can you help me now with this step? I need more tools to do close reading, or I need more tools to do outlining. This month is pre-writing. We're doing a different skill every month and trying to come up with new ways to do it. And the teachers are very excited about it. So definitely collaborating along the process, working together on delivering it.
Yes, so and I think that's a really good point, that it's not coming in halfway through a project and saying, well, what can I do to help? But really being right from the co-planning all the way through to the assessment. And a lot of times it's having a very thick skin and going to people and say, I have an idea, what can I take off your plate? And you're going to get shot down every now and then, but more times than not, they're going to be very thrilled that you're willing to be that co-educational partner from beginning to end. And it's really, it really helps them to see you as that educational partner instead of somebody that's just going to give resources. One of the things that I think is really successful and that we've done is there's so many different ways now for students to present information, and to be that person that helps embed new technologies, new tools, new apps, instead of everybody focusing on traditional ways to do it, to say, let's do a e-portfolio to show learning along the way. Now with the social studies framework, with that taking informed action, even though the inquiries with a little I are not really a great inquiry process because they're so the teachers are looking at them and they're very structured with everything there. That inquiry process for us can really take place in that taking informed action. Think of the projects that kids can do after they've gone through the unit, done the inquiry that's part of the unit, but then to really take and then take off on an aspect that really interests them in that learning, to take that informed action. So I think it's when you go with an idea and you know, number one, what the curriculum is across your school, you are the only experts in your school that know everybody's curriculum. So you have a heads up or advantage right there, because a librarian is really aware of all curriculum. So you know what's happening in science, you know what's happening in social studies, so imagine the projects that you can then do as an interdisciplinary unit and take something off the plate of those teachers.
I think, Penny can talk in a second about PBL, but one of the things that the Liverpool Elementary librarians did in our district was to become an integral part of the social studies curriculum development this year. And recently on the Superintendent's Day, we presented each one of us at a different grade level, and there's enough of us in Liverpool that we could do that. We divided it up, and we showed them how we could support each area of their curriculum at that grade level with databases, with books, with websites, with ebooks, and we got great accolades because we were willing to step forward and help them with that. And I think, Penny, do you want to talk a little bit about your PBL and how integral you've been in that process?
I am going to jump in a little bit, too, about the Superintendent Conference Day. I've had 2 teachers say to me that throughout the whole Superintendent Conference Day, everyone kept saying how great it was that the librarians were providing this. But how are we supposed to do that when we're not in those buildings every day? So again, this is something hopefully that the teachers will start pushing for us, that the district is telling them that they need the librarians to do the social studies, but their librarian's not there every day. So again, that just hopefully will become a little bit of an advocacy thing for us through other people. My building does a lot of PBL, and I've been very fortunate. My principal has been very supportive of the special areas being involved with PBL, and I went to the PBL training with the teachers, and so it was excellent. I was there with them from the planning stages right on, and that made a huge difference. Because as we were planning, I could jump right in and say, oh no, I'll do that piece for you. That's already part of my curriculum anyway. And so and it changes from year to year. It looks a little bit different this year than it did last year because we have a different group of 6th graders that we did from last year. But because PBL is so flexible, sometimes I would just go down to the 6th grade cluster, and I would see the entire 6th grade for 15 minutes and just do a refresher of how you get into the databases or ability, and the communication with the teachers is huge in PBL, and it is a big time saver. And then when they come to library in their regular groups, we can work on other things. But PBL is because it is so flexible, that we were really able to modify the way that looks. And I definitely think through PBL that they saw me at the elementary level. Sometimes it's hard to get teachers to see you as a co-teacher. And so PBL really opens up that door for you because you can flex in to theirs. They sometimes flex in and come into the library just to learn what I'm teaching so that they also know it. Sometimes the kids go back and teach the teachers. So definitely the PBL has a nice fluid piece to it.
I also think that students can be those advocates for you as well with the teachers. So I think that's really important. I have an I staff at my school, and somebody's not muted. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I find that utilizing those students as student leaders in the building is very important, and then the students are going to say to the teacher, well, we worked with Miss Turner on this project and it was really cool, so why don't you work with her? So I mean, I have definitely some teachers have come to me due to the fact of like, oh, you were working with so and so, and other teachers can become your advocates as well. I mean, I don't want to not stress that students themselves can be our greatest reward and challenge, but seeing those students get excited is really what gets me excited. So I just wanted to just mention that students as our advocates.
Okay, so switching focus a little bit to the administration side, a lot of people had questions about data. What data should we be gathering? What kind of information should we be presenting to our boards, our principals, our superintendents? What should go into an annual report to demonstrate the good stuff you're doing and the good stuff that is getting missed because of these needs that you have. So what are some things that should not be overlooked in putting that together?
Okay, the data junkie has to jump in here. I measure pretty much everything, but I start actually from the SLIMPy. I use the program evaluation, and I think of ways to quantify each section of it. So I can say, yes, I meet this, no, I don't meet this. If I can set a goal, how am I going to measure it to prove that I am meeting it to my administrator? If I say I'm going to increase foot traffic for independent use, I have to be measuring independent use. And it's a silly thing to track, but I have 20 years of trend analysis of kids. Why do they come to the library? Are they coming in for independent use? Are they coming in for instructional classes? Are they coming in for technology? Are they signing out books? That makes a huge difference. For example, last year, 78,000 kids through my door last year. And I can tell where the trends are going up, and if we're doing more instruction, does the independent use goes up? That made a huge difference in staffing for us. The ability to get an aide in there to say, you closed us in the morning last year, we lost 25,000 visits for kids. That's how many kids who aren't getting their assignments printed or the resources they need or access to the librarian. It can be powerful to keep track of a simple thing like that. We also do collection, the typical collection analysis, which isn't as important for us, except for gathering money that we need to purchase more materials for specific parts of the curriculum. We also do, trend analysis, online usage. We measure before and after PR of particular products to the staff and to the kids to see which are picking up so that we know which products to buy. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things you can measure, but those are some simple ones you can use.
Sue, you'd almost think we worked together before or something, right? And that was what I was going to suggest. I think the SLIMPy rubric is a underutilized gem for you to start those conversations with your administrators. You should do it at the beginning of every year and really then take a really hard look. And sometimes it's difficult to take a hard look at where your program's at, but you can't show where you are proficient and where you are not if you don't take that hard look. But that is such a powerful talking document with your administrator, because that's where you can actually look at data, pull it together, and have evidence to prove all of those, within all of those elements, where you need to grow. And that's where you say, I'm telling you, no administrator wants to see that they are below proficient anywhere. So when you bring that in and you say honestly that this is where we are, how together can we move ourselves up that rubric so that at some point in the near future we have an exemplary program. Now, you can't do it with every single element on there every year, but that's how you build your goals every year. And you can't build your goals independently. You need to build those goals with your administrator because you need their support. A very, very powerful advocacy document that's really, really underused, not just throughout our region, but all across New York State. So get involved with your local organization, your state organization, and really advocate for the use of that document.
Also, just from Sue Kowalski, they are currently revising the SLIMPy rubric and are very close to completion. So just we had a tweet out on that. That's it.
And I'm on the instructional design. That's my field that I'm working on with the SLIMPy. Sarah, I think you're on it. You have a field. Heather, you do too, right?
Yeah, so, I have too.
There's all consultants across New York State working on. I think my revisions are due Friday, so I have work to do when this is over. But your comments on that document as it gets revised are really important.
Sue, do you think that you would be willing to share an example of that end of the year report that you have done with our members? Because you're one of them. So.
Sure. In the past, I've done workshops on how to actually take that Slimpy apart, what kind of measures you can do, what it looks like. It is very powerful to all of a sudden meet with your administrators, which I have done, and said, I went from exemplary to below basic in 1 year. So very powerful to do that. And yeah, I'd be happy to share.
Thank you very much, Sue.
The one thing that Sue didn't mention, because boy, you mentioned some very important things, is that is on the BEDS form is the number of collaborative programs that you do, and you're nodding too, that you do with teachers, and what percentage of the time that you spend on collaboration, which can be anywhere from coordination to data-driven collaboration, but that's an important measure as well, and especially if you can show that you can't do it if you haven't got enough staffing and if you're not there. That was the one thing that I could think about that I didn't hear, because I was fascinating and I want to go to that workshop. So.
Well, maybe we can convince Sue to do something. Sue!
Probably.
Sue, just let me know when you want to set that up, and we'll get it on the books. We'll host it at OCM School Library System in our new building. We'll talk.
Okay, so with just a couple minutes left, I feel like you guys have shared so many things that tie right into this question, but they're, specifically, how do you advocate for adding or restoring a position? And the question was asked specifically when it's been seen as acceptable to have just a paraprofessional. So anything that you'd like to add to that particular question? I know several of you have personal experience with that type of advocacy.
Initially, when we were cut, we as a team were attending school board meetings, and we were when we also went to their work sessions and all of their budgets, and as we would listen at the work sessions and they would stand up for a break, that was our time to stand up and speak with them, not on a hard sell, but having conversation with them and saying, did you know? We were successful initially, and I don't remember, we kind of crawled back from having the cuts. We're still down. We're down a fraction. I've heard different numbers say how much we're down, but right now we're faced with a changing population, and while I believe that we were near the top of the list, I think our changing population demands that we hire some special education teachers. We replace the part-time psychologist in our buildings. I think the needs of our population are driving the personnel choices right now. I do believe our superintendent and our director of elementary education are supportive of returning us. I just think circumstances and politics in Albany are working against us. Anything you want to add to that before?
No, I think another issue, and that hasn't been brought up, is how do you address putting a paraprofessional in when we can't hire any professionals because of the lack of availability in the region. So if you are not facing that situation right now, you will be facing that very shortly. When are you going to let the library be black, or are you going to let them put a paraprofessional in there? I think what we do as professionals, if they know what your role is and they know what you're doing, and you are doing all those things you should be, that it's what you can deliver to the students, to the staff, that will go miles to help you in that situation. I don't really know if there's anything specifically that you can do to illustrate that.
Doreen, I need you to share with everybody the information you gave about the vacancies in upstate New York and actually all over New York State.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing as a Central New York SLISA organization is we have a initiative to recruit highly qualified school librarians. Over the past several years, SU has graduated. Last year it was 4 school media students, and all of those students had jobs before they even were out of the program. Currently across upstate New York, and this is not even counting the city, or New York City, where the vacancies outnumber, I think, those being filled. Excuse me. We have right now, I think we're down to 39 openings that were not filled this year, or were filled with either a paraprofessional, an uncertified person, or a teacher who is a certified teacher but not school library. So there's a lot of initiatives. We have a lot of momentum with some bills to get certified librarians, not mandated, but written into the regulations for all buildings. We never want to say mandated, but some part of regulations. But that's a double-edged sword for us, because now we have a lot of grassroots efforts to get that in place, but we have nobody to fill those positions. So we have a lot of grants being worked on. Barbara Stripling at the iSchool has recently written an IMLS grant that we're waiting to see if she'll be invited to do the full grant for certified teachers to become librarians, because they do not have to do the EdTPA requirement. But in our region alone, we have, well, Liverpool has a .6 they haven't been able to fill with another retirement. We're facing 5 more retirements through the region, just in our region alone, and maybe another opening besides that, and we just do not have those certified people. I'm constantly tweeting out and sending different openings across the state. So we have a lot of work to do in advocating, and a lot of the reasons that we don't have the traction to get those candidates is because of all the cuts that happened in 2009 and 10. Perfect example of that, right, ladies? So what we need to do is really celebrate when those positions have been added back in. And throughout our region, we've had Chittenango add positions back in, Liverpool. So almost all our districts are fully staffed, but we need to really work with our School of Eds. We need to work with our teacher prep programs. Every teacher needs to get a master's degree within 5 years, and here's a real shortage, right? And in the big cities, the big 5, it's at critical shortage right now. Syracuse City has positions they have not been able to fill, and there's more coming up. So we have a lot of work to do. So the superintendents that I work with, there's a superintendent meeting today, they want certified people in their buildings. So we have a lot of work to do to get more candidates.
Okay, so we're past 8:30. I don't want to keep people past their bedtimes, but I have one more question that I think is really important, and then we will wrap up for the night. Going really big picture, what does advocacy look like at the legislative level? What's the role of professional organizations, and what should librarians be doing on the ground to support that?
May I speak to that? Just that tags perfectly with what Doreen was saying, because right now NYLA is working very, very hard on bringing elementary librarians into the Regulation 91.9. which means there have to be some there. And it is extremely important for people to be members of NYLA, members of SSL, and to pay attention to the legislative alerts. It is so easy to go to the NYLA legislative page when that alert comes out, when you receive the email from Jeremy Johannesson, and send a letter via the automated software. It is so easy. I know I'm very underhanded, but that page used to be up on the computer that was right next to where the teachers came in to read the newspaper, so that I could persuade them to very easily to say, you know, we really need this. This will make a difference, and the teachers would do that to get your friends and relatives to network out. But you have to be in there. You have to be in there, not everybody can take students to the NYLA Legislative Day in March, but everybody can be part of the virtual library day, where you can, again, send those letters, you can make phone calls. It's not hard when you've got talking points, and that also goes for the Washington office, and it's having those alerts. The Washington office, I worked so hard to get the Skills Act, to get as much language as they could into ESSA, and because of what's in ESSA now, I mean, because of being on the ALA exec board, I get that report monthly on what they've been doing legislatively, and ESSA specifically includes school librarians in the definition of specialized instructional support personnel. Specialized instructional support personnel, which means Title I grants have to be included with that. Doesn't mean you will, but if you advocate, you can be. And it authorizes but doesn't require that it will provide students with an opportunity to develop digital literacy skills and improve academic achievement. And their districts are required to conduct a needs assessment every 3 years, which must include access to personalized learning experience. Sounds a lot like PBL, which may include access to libraries. So, you know, understanding ESSA, understanding the school librarian possibilities, and then doing many of these things, involving the students, involving the community, turning outward, working with your organizations. All of the things that we talked about tonight will mean that the funds, the training we need, all can come through the federal government. But we can't let everybody else do it. We can't let everybody else do it. You just need to do whatever it is that you can. I will be at National Library Lobby Day in Legislative Day in Washington, but I hope everybody that's listening and all of your friends and relatives and grandparents, aunts, uncles, will be joining the virtual National Library Legislative Day, which is right on the Washington office page of the ALA. So it's don't wait for it to come to you. Make sure it happens. Be the one that because if you don't participate, you might not like what happens. And you are and you know what matters. You can provide the data, you can provide the stories, and it's kind of interesting when your state senators start following you on Twitter. They do that. They absolutely do that, and that's a voice that that you can take advantage of. Some of the tweets that come out of this group are fabulous, and if you start directing them to the state senators, your national senators, your legislative reps, pretty soon they're following you, and then things happen. So be a member and be active. I consider myself a school librarian activist, and so is everybody on here.
Great. That's a great thought to leave us with. So thank all of you for sharing your knowledge and your time, and for everybody that's on watching, you're fabulous as well. So get out there, get involved, and prove how fabulous you are. This has been recorded, so we'll be posting the link on the CNYSL website and on the Facebook group, and probably out on the Twitter as well. And keep an eye out over the next day or so for an email with a link to an evaluation. So thank you all so much, and have an awesome night. Bye, everyone.
Also, just so you know, we are having another Google Hangout before the end of the year. The topic has not been decided on, so if you have a suggestion, please let us know. And we do have some live events, like the Tully Free Library Book Cafe is coming up in May, and our Library Superhero Award, so librarians that you know that are awesome in Central New York. They do not have to be a member of CNYSL. Our library website is cnysl.weebly.com. You can find out more information there. Thank you.
And just one more. Don't forget to nominate your administrator or an advocate for the Administrator Advocate of the Award. The nominations are still open, and there's not very many folks out there that are nominating. It's a fantastic advocacy tool.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
All right, thanks so much. Have a great night.